Everybody. So I have not collaborated with these ladies in a while, but I'm here with the Gala sisters. Say hello.
Hi, we're
Hi.
It's
back.
early. It's early and they look a lot better than I do. They're a lot more chipper and fixed up. I just got out of bed, or it kind of looks like it. But we're here to talk about the Idaho thing. I'm so glad that you ladies could talk to me about this because I really have wanted to talk about this with somebody. And I think I saw that Popcorn Planet that actually Andy just did an episode on it. So that's cool. So anyway, let's cut to the chase. So I'm so glad that you want to talk about this. Um, what's the latest? It's something about a car, right? The police are on the lookout for a car. Tell me about that.
It's a Toyota
That was a Hyundai.
or a Hyundai,
Hyundai, and they
Okay.
don't have a license plate. They just have a make and a model. That's all they have.
and it was driving by the home in the morning, and they believe the people in the car actually know something about the murders. So
Or
if
could
anybody has
even
seen
be
that,
suspect, right?
it could be.
So, and they put out a picture. It wasn't a picture of, and they stressed to the public that it wasn't a picture of the actual car specifically that they're looking for, but like it is like the make and model and color and everything. And so I'll put that up on the screen. But they did post that very recently, like just last night, yesterday. Um, so that's one thing. What else? What's the latest? Anything else that you ladies think is notable the last few days?
They had said that there was something about many people knew the lock combination.
To the house?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the Daily Mail broke that.
Mm.
That's not good.
Yeah, it does. And there were those lots of people saying that it was a part reports, or at least lots of reports about the fact that it was a party house and stuff, which I don't judge that, college or not college, whatever people want to party, that's great. But if there were a lot of people coming in and out, and there are people who, like you say, had access to the lock or the code, the codes, that's not good. And each bedroom had a code, a lock and a code, right? But we don't know that they actually used it because most of the time, I would imagine people don't use those things on the inside, right?
Probably not.
No, and the
Yeah.
locks had just been changed a couple weeks before, or they had been fixed. So they definitely had locks, and it sounded like they were using them.
But you just never know. I mean, we weren't there personally, so we don't know.
Yeah, I know that the that story, well, I mean it's not just a story, it's true that the one of the fathers, I think it was Kaylee's father, Kaylee Goncalves's father had come by to change her lock, or at least, or maybe more of them, I don't know, but yeah, again, that doesn't mean that obviously they didn't use the interior locks or the exterior, right? Because the police theorized it was a sliding glass door. Like it may not have even been that the killer had to enter in a code. Like it sounds like he or they just opened up the sliding glass door. It was left open.
Another thing they could have done too is put up a ladder to the balcony and climbed in. And I know that a lot of people don't keep their balcony doors locked.
No. Well,
I've
and
seen people
I'm
do
sorry,
it.
go ahead.
I've seen people do that.
You've seen them
Like
climb
just
up that way?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know it may seem strange to some people, this idea of not locking doors. Like I saw in the comments, I posted a video of a friend of mine who lives in Idaho, not too far from the murders, and she was talking about how, she doesn't lock her doors or whatever. And people in the comments said, "What?" But like, yeah, there are some areas where, like, I shouldn't say this, but I don't always lock my doors. And I'm not even in a safe area. So, I mean, people do things sometimes not too wise, but especially
Um,
college kids. Sorry, go
we
ahead.
lived in Champaign, Illinois for many years, well, 3 years, and we didn't lock our doors when we lived
Never.
there.
We never did.
No
Yeah,
way.
yeah. It's not that uncommon. No, it's not. And especially, it's a roommate situation, a college roommate. So you've got people coming and going, and there's just a sense of just kind of an acceptance also of like transients. I know this is a completely different case, but it reminded me in one way of the Sharon Tate, the Charles Manson group and the Sharon Tate murders, because I just finished reading a book. You all should check this out if you're into true crime. I'm doing a video on it. But it's called, oh, I'm blanking out now, but it's about the Charles Manson murders. And it gets into this conspiracy theory, and this reporter who spent, years and years and years of his life and all of his money uncovering a kind of a deeper reality there than what the public knows about that whole thing and about what the government knew about it. But anyway, but here's what got me thinking is the idea that the apparently prior to the murders, Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski, their house was known as just being like this party house. They never locked the doors. People were coming and going, and there were, and in that case, there were like drugs and stuff going on. I'm not accusing these Idaho kids of anything, but this sort of like easy, carefree attitude of like, yeah, whoever wants to come over is fine. And we never lock our doors, and party house and everything like that can be dangerous, right? Conceivably.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, and there's another very famous person that did that too with his house. John Wayne Gacy did too.
Oh, was he kind of a party, or he presented the facade of like a party guy, party
He worked
house?
in the restaurant, and we watched a documentary on it, and he had people come over, and some of them never left.
Nope.
To party though?
Yeah,
Is that
they
the
could come
idea?
over and sleep,
Mm,
party. He had, cookouts. I mean,
mhm.
people were living there if they needed to. I mean, it
Mm.
was great. It sounds like sociable. I mean, sounds like fun. I worked in restaurants for many years. I know how it is. It's like a little family, and had a dark ending apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary to think that there are people who will use the appearance of benevolence and being kind and easygoing to actually hide something really nefarious. If you're into true crime, I wonder if you've seen the series The Serpent. It's on Netflix. Check that out. I think you'd really find that interesting, but it's about this guy who was a prolific serial killer. He and his wife, or his girlfriend, prolific serial killers in Thailand, and they owned a hostel, a kind of a hostel, and what would happen is they would lure in Western backpackers who in the late 70s were, on this trail that went from Europe to Asia, right? And so they would lure them in, and they seemed like so like charming and benevolent, and oh, we'll give you this place to stay, we won't even charge you, and all of that. And then meanwhile, they poisoned them, killed them, and then took their money or their traveler's checks or whatever. But anyway, I know we're far afield of things, but you should check that out, The Serpent. So,
Yeah.
ladies, I asked Andrea the other day, I said, Andrea, do you think this case is cold? Like, do you think that they're going to find they're going to find the perpetrator or perpetrators? And she said that she thought it was not looking good. I know you don't have like a lot of expertise professionally, but you have a brain and you pay attention to these things. How do you feel about it? Are you getting a bad feeling?
I think that I read something in the Independent. I think it might have been yesterday. I can't remember. And it said something along the lines of, yes, they may have ruled people out for now, but it is not unrealistic for them to say, no, excuse me, person, we interviewed you once. We'd like you to come back because trails led to you. I think they're going to solve it. I really do. Because I think
that's good. You think so too?
Yeah, I think that they can track down people who were there at that time. There's so many people around. Somebody had to have seen something. I mean,
you would think. Do you think it's okay? So you think it's more likely that it's a targeted attack, somebody that like knew a friend or an ex-lover or something, or do you think it's a serial killer, or do you have an opinion?
I think that with it being an attack with a knife, that it probably was a targeted attack. And I know that a lot of people are saying that it was Kaylee because she was most brutally attacked. That I don't think that necessarily means that it was her. And
yeah, so for our viewers who might not,
why people keep saying that is only one person too that they think was in there, and why does it have to be a male too? I don't. Maybe it's just because I would never do something like this. But how do you walk into someone's bedroom and knife two people to death that are next to each other? Like, wouldn't the other one wake up?
well, I've thought about that, and I just want to say for our viewers who might not know what you're talking about with the Kaylee thing. So one of them had there were two best friends sleeping in the same bed, Maddie and Kaylee had much more extensive, like she had a lot of defensive injuries and stuff. They think she fought back a lot more.
Yeah.
But you're asking like, yeah, how does that work where one is what I think is that just putting myself in that situation and like imagining it, as horrific as that would be, I think that just the element of surprise and of someone who's waking up from a dead sleep, I think you're just so disoriented, and then like you probably can't even believe what's happening. You don't know what's happening. It's dark. That person, that that killer, they had such an advantage with the element of surprise and the element of coming on full force. Like you're waking up and someone's doing that next to you. Like, so it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that they would have different reactions. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think that, if you had read it, there was an article, I think it was on like Yahoo or something, and it said something along the lines of that back in September, there was a gentleman who was it was like vandalizing places, and he approached a couple of students in the parking lot with a knife. And they sent out this like, be careful, don't go up there.
When was this?
In September.
Was this the thing that the story that was reported? I think at one point that he was actually in the car and these two women came up to the car and
yeah, it was something like that. But that's
okay. Yeah, no, I was going to say no. That was something that like people were reporting a lot in the first week, and then for some reason that story died away because the cops said that there was no connection. But what I noticed though, when the cops say that there's no connection, same thing with the dog that was skinned. They say there's no evidence tying them together, but they don't say that like definitively it's ruled out. And so like you're talking about some guy in a parking lot, and the story that I read actually was that he was literally sitting in these ladies in their car waiting for them. They come up to him, they come to the car, and then they see there's this man sitting in the car. He gets out, starts chasing them, apparently you say with a knife. And I also read that there were witnesses who observed this, that a couple of people observed these women at least being chased for a time in the parking lot. So that's scary. And then the incident, I guess you're familiar with the dog, right? The dog skinning,
Yep.
not too far away, right? From these murders.
Yeah. And being that we currently live around Minneapolis, being chased with a knife in a parking lot honestly isn't that unusual.
No.
It does. It's not an unusual crime.
In Minneapolis. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it before growing up here.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
However,
gosh.
skinning a dog, that's a little more unheard of.
Yeah.
That's odd. And it's also really brutal too, in its own way, because here in America, at least, we really cherish our animals.
Yeah, and the owner of the dog did an interview and said that it was, I know this is disturbing for people, so not to dwell on it, but it was very clear that it was a human that had done this, and it wasn't like an animal that had attacked the dog and hurt it or skinned it. So and yeah, you're right. It's rare, and especially again, this is a tiny town where apparently they haven't even had a murder since 2015. So it's definitely not Minneapolis, right? So they haven't had a murder since 2015, and now in the last month or two, they're having these the animal incident, and then also this crazy crazy guy or whatever in the parking lot with a knife chasing women around. Yeah, it's creepy. So did you say if you thought it was a serial killer or targeted? I'm sorry, we got a field. What do you think? Serial killer or targeted someone they knew?
So based on what we're seeing, I think it's targeted, but it's possible it could be serial killer, because you see a lot of serial killers travel around when they feel like they're about to get caught. They go somewhere else.
They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to get caught, so let's go to Des Moines. Oh, I'm going to get caught, so let's go to Minneapolis. Oh, I'm going to get caught, so let's go to Cincinnati, Ohio. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Now, I'm assuming you've heard the theory too that this could be connected to two other stabbings. Are you familiar with that? Right. So I'm sure our viewers know by now too. So there was a stabbing in Washington, and there was a stabbing in Oregon. And correct me if I'm wrong, but both of those took place on the 13th of a month, right? So just like the Idaho stabbings took place on the 13th of November, I think one of them was the 13th of June and maybe another in August, and spaced out like different years. So like there was the 20th, 21st, and then this year. Again, the police said no connection, but they said that thing that I don't like. They said there's no evidence tying them together, which again is not disqualifying. I mean, the evidence might be that in the middle of the night on the 13th of a month, people were stabbed in their beds or whatever, or stabbed at night. So I don't seems like a connection.
I mean, and it's not like it's a far drive from, any of those states.
Yeah, it's not like a serial killer would have to abide by state boundaries. So I can only do this here in this state.